And now this is an event made by the students for the students. In this event, we bring unique guests from the industry to hear their experience and advice. The goal of this event is for us, the new generation, is serve the world with passion while nurturing entrepreneurship, coding skills, innovation, and aspiration to ultimately have a better life and a worthwhile career. Sorry about that. First and foremost, I'd like to thank all of the organizers of the event, our hall master and student residents for letting us make this event. And I would like to thank our special whole night talk team for organizing and managing this event. I'd like to quickly pass on the time to our hall master's friends, Professor Lowe, who's an Associate Vice President of Student Affairs at CityU, and also our Director of Student Office. Please welcome them.
Okay. Dear students, colleagues, especially our distinguished guest, Ellen Ma, good evening, Gong Hee Fa Choi.
Yeah, good evening.
Now, on behalf of CityU Apps Hong Kong, I'm delighted to welcome all of you to this special Hall Night talk, co-organized by Hall 2 and Student Residence Office. I was told special stand for serve the world, passion, entrepreneurship, coding, innovation, aspiration, and life and career. So the event aims to open up our students' horizons and provide a dynamic and quality learning platform for our students. CityU Apps Hong Kong has achieved fast growth in recent years, and we are humbled to have received international recognition for our achievements. Our university fully recognizes that higher education institutions have an important role to play in a modern society. As a center of knowledge development, our mission is to create and apply knowledge to support student development and social advancement. Against this background, we organize this platform for students and community leaders to exchange ideas, to examine and develop initiatives for effective knowledge transfer. I'm so happy to see so many participants tonight. On behalf of CityU, I would like to take this opportunity to express our appreciation for your presence. With your active participation, I trust that we will have an enjoyable and meaningful evening.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Ivan, please go ahead, proceed to invite our speaker, please. Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Lowe, for the nice introduction.
I think this was an amazing introduction. I'd like to quickly invite our special guest of this hall event, who is a former CEO of Hong Kong Science and Technologies Park, who is also did a lot of things in his life, such as executive positions and in many different international companies in the ICT industry. He also researches megatrends and ecosystems for companies to have amazing growth within Hong Kong. Furthermore, he is also one of the co-founders of biopharmaceuticals and a non-executive director of Max Bank, majority owned by Standard Chartered. Please welcome.
Thank you, Professor Lowe, for your kind word, and thanks to Ivan for the introduction. It's my honor to be here with all of you to share my experience, and hopefully at the end you pick up a couple of key messages. Now, from the opening slide here, this is a snapshot of the movie Mission Impossible. If you're like me who loves this kind of action-filled movie, you probably will be able to recognize that Tom Cruise was falling from the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. But he was lucky, he was caught by the Asian band, and therefore he saved his life. And my key message to you is that when you do your career plan, there will be a lot of changes, unexpected events. It's very, very difficult for you to do your career plan in the future. In your next 40 years, changes in your operating environment, changes in what you hope to be able to develop your career, will be going through a lot of disruption. We're bringing about a lot of disruption to you. And at the same time, you need good guy like Agent Ben to provide you the service of a coach or a mentor. So remember this one while we talk about the next 10 slides or so. The organizer asked me to provide some background of my own career, and hopefully some of my learnings from my own career development will be picked up by you, and you consider how you can copy some of what I have done. But to be very frank with you, I think when you do your career plan, there will be a lot of luck involved in it, okay? Sometimes you can plan, but the most important thing is you be prepared for the arrival of luck. When luck arrives, when you're well prepared, you get what you want. And if you don't have it yet, maybe it's because of luck hasn't arrived yet, so don't give up. And the key learning from me is that you need to be in the right place at the right time. And even more important is you need to be able to meet the right mentor. Mentor provide a lot of good support to you during your career planning, okay? And my background is very straightforward. I was initially trained as a chartered accountant. And I met a mentor, Professor John Ashby, who is the director of the EMBA program at CUHK, and he advised me to go to Toronto. So I went to Toronto for my MBA study, and after finishing it, I switched my career path, and then I went into customer operation. I led a team of 6,000 people doing telephone installation, repair, and hotline, which is quite unique compared to my own training as a chartered accountant. Then I moved into marketing, strategy formulation. I did about 5 merger and acquisitions throughout my career. The biggest one was 4.8 billion Hong Kong dollars. The last one I did was in 2017, only around 200 million Singaporean dollars. But those are exciting projects. I also managed to get into infrastructure project, sales and completion in Southeast Asia while mobile communication was booming. So I sold and installed mobile communication networks for countries like Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, India. And I went into regional business management, general management. So I was very lucky to be able to ride with the emergence of new industries in the emerging markets. In terms of industry background, is primarily telecommunication. I also went into banking during the big bang of the banking system in Toronto in the 80s, when securities trading, insurance, etc., are allowed to emerge with conventional banking and to form what we call financial service industry today. Mobile communication was basically my important milestone in the 90s when GSM became so popular around the world, and then moved into internet when I couldn't even spell the word and had to learn about what is internet. And then we combined communication and IT together to call what we call network IT solutions for British Telecom. And then more recently, before I retired, I worked for the Hong Kong Science Technology Park Corporation to incubate startups and to build the I&T innovation technology ecosystems for Hong Kong. So it's quite, I would say, eventful career for me, and I really enjoy it. My own hobbies are basically study in megatrends, which I'll cover later on, and also in particular, the history of innovations over the last 5,000 years. What makes things work and what makes things not work, okay? And in parallel, I coach a number of entrepreneurs. I've lived in 4 cities, Hong Kong, Toronto, Bangkok, and Delhi. And because of this, I really understand what is multiculturalism and how to make sure that you live what we call an inclusive lifestyle. In other words, you work and deal with people from different walks of life, as well as from different ethnic groups. And this is really something important for you to appreciate. And after my retirement about 4 years ago, I took up the role of chairman of Madura Biopharmaceutical. And our business is about cloning of human organ using stem cell, as well as producing stem cell for medical use. We have a GMP in Hong Kong, but most of our research are in the US. And we also have a couple of cardio drugs, meaning heart drugs, that we are researching. And apart from that, I'm the independent non-executive director of Moss Bank, which is owned by Standard Chartered Bank. And the last thing is similar to what I'm doing here. I've been teaching the course Managing Innovation Technology for CUHK MBA program for 5 years now. It's a 3-credit course covering 42 hours. I really enjoy it because this gives me a chance to learn from the students about what they think about the INT business around the world right now. And it's a 42-hour course, and I use about 200 slides to deliver this 3-credit course. And when I was invited to talk tonight, I went through the slide and picked about a dozen of them. And hopefully I can use those dozen slides to help you understand the subject matter of technology everywhere and why we always believe that innovation is happening day in, day out, and most of the innovations are going to disrupt how you prepare for your career in the future. I got stuck. I can't turn to the next page. Okay. So the rundown will be, firstly, we talk about changes, how to cope with changes, and then I elaborate technology everywhere. What does it mean? What kind of technology elements you need to start to understand and find way of learning, and also how technology become innovations, and why some technology die, and why some technology become adopted and become great innovations. And one of the key drivers is mega trends, so I'll cover a couple of these. And but at the end of the day, it's not technology that is going to introduce change. I want you to remember this one. It's innovation and adoption technology that introduce change, which will affect your career. Okay, and then we talk a little bit about your career plan. How can you be better prepared for your next 40 years? Talking about change, I want to share with you a kind of story which I find very useful to understand why changes are happening and how to cope with it. It's in July 2018. I took a 2-week vacation to go to a country called Ecuador in South America. And then 1,000 kilometers west of the coastline of South America is a group of islands called Galapagos Islands. Okay, it's administered by Ecuador, but is surrounded by just the ocean, nothing really around there. And there are about a dozen islands or so there. And these are the pictures I took during my trip there, and you can see me in the southwest corner here. That's me in the orange vest. Okay. Now these animals and birds are exotic, obviously. For example, this gigantic tortoise is about 5 to 6 feet in diameter. This land guana is about 7 feet long. And this bird is just counter-evolution. It can no longer fly these days. In the past, this bird can fly, but now because of the reverse evolution, it can no longer fly. So these are exotic animals. But why did I go there? It's because I want to follow the footsteps of the famous scientist, British scientist. He's one of the top 3 scientists in Britain, Charles Darwin. Now, I believe most of you have heard about Charles Darwin. Okay, he's a very interesting life. And his 2 books written in 1839, 1859, called The Theory of Natural Selection and On the Origin of Species, basically changed the way we human beings understand the source, the origin of species, including human beings. Okay, and this is the sea voyage that he took in 1831 to 36. So he spent 5 years on a very small ship called HMS Beagle. Okay, so he traveled from Plymouth, south of Britain, all the way to South America and traveled around the coast to do scientific research. And then when the ship arrived in Galapagos in 1835, he spent 3 months there doing all the research, meeting all the animals, etc. And his 3 month stay in Galapagos basically gave him the insight to write these 2 masterpieces. Okay. Now, it's a long story. If you're interested, you can do some online research to understand what he did on the islands and why he got the insight and then wrote the 2 books. Okay. But the most important insight I picked up during my trip there 2.5 years ago was this statement written by Charles Darwin. He said that it's not the strongest or the most intelligent, so not the strongest, not the most intelligent, who will survive the change, but those who can best manage change. Okay. Now the last part of the sentence is very important for you. It's about how you can manage the change. How can you cope with the change that matter? It's not whether you have IQ 160 or you are very strong, etc. It's not about that. It's about the mind here. In your mind, can you cope with the change? Okay. Can you manage the change properly? Okay. Now this applies to your career plan a lot. And in particular, in the innovation technology area, the industry I've been in for a long time, okay, we always cope with changes. We have to deal with the changes proactively, okay? Now, talking about technology everywhere, I thought this slide would be helpful to you to understand what are the technology building blocks that are hot these days, okay? And I follow the 5 categories that we use at the Science Park in Hong Kong. Information and communication technology, electronic, or sometimes called semiconductor, biotechnology or biopharmaceutical, green technology, and all the material, precision engineering, etc. Now, today in your study, I believe is probably the first column here that's getting the most attention. Data technology, cloud computing, using big data, artificial intelligence to drive the digital economy, for example. And then if you're interested in Internet of Things, edge computing, this is also getting a lot of attention from the industry players, including investors, etc. Financial technology is basically the theme of Moss Bank, which I'm a director of. Social media, I'm sure all of you are using social media, right? Electronic is becoming very political these days because of all the embargo, etc. And then in particular, last year during the pandemic, there's a shortage of supply, shortage of capacity, but this one is going to grow and will continue to support the first column here. So basically, the first column is about data, software, program, IT. The red column, electronic, is about the hardware. The two combined give you a product. Biotechnology is about us human beings, the drug, the stem cell I mentioned about earlier on, the company that I work for as a chairman, and all the medical devices, the vaccine, like the vaccine we are now trying to deliver for the pandemic. And then green technology is about planet Earth. How can we make sure that we have a sustainable future while living, expanding, growing our business, right? It's about the power, okay? Now, today is not just about generating power, it's about how to manage power. In other words, you want to minimize the use of power. At the same time, how can we store the power? For example, if you're talking about electrical vehicle, it's about all the intelligence sitting on the electronic supported by the best in class in terms of battery that matter. Water quality, air quality, how can we dispose of waste without creating problem for planet Earth? All of this is about planet Earth. And then materials and also precision engineering is about robotics. Robotics can be used for industry, for medical, as well as home assistant. All the new kind of compound, metallic compound coming about, new type of carbon-based materials that are delivering better products, consuming lesser power. All of these are popping up. Now, the last one is automation. Automation is a big thing today. So all of these are the technology building blocks applicable to Hong Kong and South Asia. Now, I haven't covered, for example, quantum computer or the space technology, because I don't see Hong Kong playing a role in those yet. In the future, I could be wrong. And I hope that somebody in Hong Kong will do something outside of this building block diagram. Okay, so this is something that I would suggest that you take a look at and pick maybe 5 subjects that you find interest in and do some research about it. So we have technology. So how can we make sure technology will be adopted, will be implemented in the world and then bring benefits to mankind? Now, there are roughly 4 main categories of what I call mother of innovation. In other words, to transform technology into adoption, okay? The first one is war. Examples are jet engine and nuclear power that were developed during the Second World War, space technology and GPS that were developed during the Cold War between the US and the USSR about 25 years ago. So these came out of war, and we have technology and then implemented in terms of jet engine, nuclear power, etc. The second mother of innovation is about need or want of the customer. For example, optical fiber replacing copper cable. synthetic rubber, replacing all the organic rubber that, and kill the entire industry in Malaysia. So this is really interesting development because of want and need change. The third time is consumer behavior change. I'm sure you know that today, very few youngsters will sit down in front of a TV and watch news. You get instant news on an app or on your smartphone. Instant messaging like WhatsApp, Signal, etc., are getting very important now because of the change in the consumer behavior in terms of the lifestyle change, etc. But the most important, the most insightful, impactful mode of innovation, in my opinion, is about mega trends. And this is where I want to spend 1 or 2 minutes on it to provide you with some hint about where you want to study, okay? So megatrend the term came about in 1982 by an American author called John Nesbitt. And he published a book called Megatrends, 10 New Directions Transforming Our Lives in 1982. And the definition of megatrend is very straightforward. It's about long-term change or movement that affect all the stakeholders in the society, like government, economies, the people, permanently over a long period of time. When we talk about long period of time, it could be 60 years, it could be 20 years. For example, the first one I want to introduce to you is the digitalization of almost everything. This one started in the 1960s, and we have been going through this mega trend for about 60 years now. All the digital economy, economic activity, all the applications you are using on a smartphone are actually as a result of this mega trend. It will continue for probably another 20 years or so. So this is something which is probably going to give you the most important impact as far as career planning is concerned. Mobility and personalization, this mega trend actually only started about 20 years ago. And the important milestone is the introduction of iPhone 1 by Steve Jobs in 2007, okay? And as a result of smartphones' arrival, everything got personalized. And then you have mobile internet access while you're on the move. The third one is about the aging population. Now, you're all young, right? So you probably haven't realized that aging population is happening in many countries now. It started from Japan about 25 years ago. But today, even China, for example, is suffering from this aging population issue. Now, obviously, people are still finding a way of making use of this aging population megatrend. But at the moment, the burden on the government to handle medical services, retirement home care, for example, are really draining national resources. But the good thing about it is that there are breakthroughs in the medical research, like how to solve dementia problem, the brain problem, and also having new drug, new medical device popping up from time to time will help us resolve this aging population issue. The fourth one will probably apply to you in a great way as well. It's about urbanization. It's only about 50 years ago when there are more people living in the city compared to people living in the suburb or in the agricultural-based economy areas. And today, most of the even developing countries have more people living in the cities. Urbanization created a good thing like more middle-class people, more wealth being created because people can congregate, they can get better education, they're more efficient. At the same time, it introduced a new problem for us. For example, traffic jam, air pollution, etc. That's why we need smart city solutions to help get around the problems brought about by urbanization. Now, this trend will continue for at least half a century, and human beings need to find a solution to address it. Otherwise, you'll find that the living in cities will be like a nightmare, okay? The last one, particularly for engineers in the audience, is what we call the fourth industrial revolution, sometimes that's called I 4.0. Now, obviously, you need to understand why we call this 4.0. So you need to go back to 1.0, 2.0, and 3.0. 1.0 started in 1776 when the British engineer James Watt modified steam engine to give us the horsepower, okay, or the watt as we use in electricity consumption today. The second industrial revolution was brought about by division of labor, as Adam Smith advocated, as well as the use of electricity which became popular in 1882 or around that time, when a Serbian engineer called Nikola Tesla, come up with this AC current being better than what Thomas Edison has invented as DC current. And when AC current became the global standard, electricity became popular and then got rolled out around the world. So the second wave of industrial revolution benefited from electricity. In other words, we have the power as well as division of labor. So people became more efficient. The third one started in around 1960, 1970 through the use of mainframe computer. Remember this big name, IBM? It was big at that time, but today it's getting quite small now. And IBM has sort of become a kind of niche player. And the important thing about the third industrial revolution is that the mainframe computer basically replaced a lot of labor work, okay? All the tabulation work, etc. So become more efficient. So the first three waves of industrial revolutions allow us to do things faster, okay? And then produce more units of output. But the I4.0 that we are talking about today is the use of what we call the cyber physical system. In other words, the IT world and the physical world production put together, creating smart manufacturing, digital factory, etc. Okay. Now, if you're interested in this one, you should do some research on the internet to find out how each country is doing. For example, in China, China launched a program called Made in China 2025. Actually, it's the first milestone. The whole program will last 30 years up to 2045. And this is the I4.0 program in China. In USA, a program launched in 2011 by President Obama is called Advanced Manufacturing Partnership. It's a kind of half fail and half success. But China has been very successful in the Made in China 2025 program. But the I4.0 actually came from a German word called Industry 4.0. It's in German. And it was announced by Germany in 2013 in terms of how to modernize the manufacturing ecosystem in Germany. And after it became popular, everybody followed, okay? So I'll suggest that you do some research about it online. Also, I've left behind a link here. It's an annual report issued by Ernst & Young on megatrends. I suggest that every year around October, November time, when the report came out, you go to this website and take a look at what are the new trends being identified. It's being refreshed annually, okay? You can go back to the last 2 years and see how the trends are changing. At the same time, there are a couple of applications that I would suggest that you download. These are all free information, free knowledge for you to keep up with the changes around the world. McKinsey, which is one of the most outstanding consulting firm. TED Talk, I'm sure you know about it. Wikipedia Wikipedia contains a lot of good information, but you need to be selective, but some of them are not true, okay? INSEAD, again, is a free website, and all the American university has open website allowing people to have full access to the course materials. And this is a way of online learning that I would suggest that you follow. Now, so we have technology. We know megatrends is the most important driver to convert from technology into innovation and adoption, right? And there are three forms of innovation: technology innovation, design innovation, and business model innovation. I'll put down here a couple examples, right? Technology innovation, the best example would be ASML, the company in Holland, which produce machine that make semiconductor. DJI is a Hong Kong guy from the UST, which are factory in Shenzhen today, doing all the drones, having an 80% market share around the world. Dyson, if you haven't used Dyson, you should find a way of either buying their hair blower, hair dryer, or the vacuum. It's a kind of bedless vacuum, which is really, really great in terms of technology. But in terms of design, Apple is leading. IKEA is leading, okay? And the first principle design thinking is a methodology that we use in design to make sure we come up with something new and useful, okay? Technology, today, we are seeing more integration, more simplification, and acceleration, whether you're talking about chips or this kind of equipment coming out from the examples I provided here. But the most important thing that the most important relating to your career is about business model innovation. Business model innovation have been disrupting a lot of companies in the last 25 years, okay? For example, when Apple came about with the iPhone 1 in 2007, who were killed is Motorola, is Nokia. These are century-old companies, okay? They have been leaders in their field for a long time. But as soon as the business model got changed, there's a more innovative way of running a business, they are disrupted and they're killed, okay? For example, here I give you a more recent one, Netflix, Uber, Amazon. All of these are using business model to disrupt the world. Now, just imagine you're working for the companies that have been disrupted by them. How do you feel? And how can you be better prepared for the fact that, or the painful fact that your company will be displaced by a newcomer? Or do it in a way, ask yourself, how can I join companies who are going to introduce business model innovation and become successful? Okay, so this is something you need to think about when you select a company to join, or after joining a company, you found that their business model is too old and will be disrupted, you should jump ship, okay? Now, I leave you with a question. I'm not giving you an answer, okay? So you know about Elon Musk, right? And he's doing 3 projects right now, Tesla, the electric car, Starlink, the satellite broadband internet, and SpaceX, the spaceship to go to Mars and Moon, right? So what form of innovation do you think Elon Musk is doing with the 3 pet projects he's now leading? Okay, think about it. I'm not going to give you an answer. Okay, now, so business model is so important. So what is business model? I've provided here a couple of views by distinguished author like Peter Drucker, who's a management guru for about 40 years. When I was at the business school, I studied a lot of Peter Drucker, but today, obviously, his thinking and principles are probably a little bit outdated now. But he said that a business model is what a business will and won't do, as simple as that. And Michael Lewis, who wrote the book Big Short and many others, and Big Short has become a movie, you know, is about how you plan to make money. John McGrath, who is the strategy editor of Harvard Business Review, repeat the same thing. How do we make money? And this is the business model we're talking about. But the one I like most is an author and a professor at Harvard Business School. Oh, by the way, he just passed away last year, Clay Christensen. And he used the term very simple. He said that you start with the customer value proposition. Obviously, when you study marketing, you know about what is customer value proposition, right? And you come with a profit formula. What can I do for my customer? What are the solution-based services I'm going to provide to my customer? And then eventually I come up with disruptive innovation. So all of this put together to Clay is business model. Now, again, I suggest you read this book, The Big Short, okay, by Michael Lewis. He's a great financial author. Many books written by Michael. I enjoy every one of his books. And also look at some of the books published by Clay Christensen before he passed away. There are a couple of good books about innovation written by Clay as well. So you may want to further knowledge by doing some research. Now, I need to run very quickly here. Since I'm running out of time, I want to allow a little bit more time for Q&A later on. So I picked 6 examples about business model innovation. Now, important thing about Amazon is it's not about e-commerce. It's about how to make use of digital economy powered by the data technology and artificial intelligence, okay? Uniqlo is about fast fashion. It basically disrupted companies like Esprit, etc., right? And there are a lot of decade-old fashion stores has gone under because of the new business model adopted by Uniqlo, okay? Alibaba, this is so close to Hong Kong. Again, it's about financial technology, data technology, AI, very similar to what Amazon has been doing. But Alibaba has gone further. And today, they have disrupted a lot of not just the mom and pop store, even departmental stores, okay? Repeating what Amazon has done to those American stores like Barnes & Noble, which is the largest bookstore in US, and Sears, which is the largest department store in the US and Canada, okay? They're repeating what Amazon is doing, basically killed other companies who haven't really woken up to the arrival of the digital economy. Now, Apple is so close to everybody. When I say Apple, it's a kind of Android and Apple, right? Because some of you are not using Apple, you may be using the Google system. It's the same thing. It's an ecosystem-based business model that Apple and Google has adopted. It's about making sure people become so sticky within the ecosystem, using the operating system, as well as using all the apps residing on the ecosystem. I'm a big fan of Apple. I'm a big fan of Steve Jobs. That's why all my computer are iMac. I use iPhone, I use iPad, I use iWatch, etc. Right? And once you have joined this club of the ecosystem, there's no way you can leave it. Okay, and this is a very, very successful business model. And the good thing about Apple is that they're not going after market share in number, but they're going after profit share. I remember 2 years ago, Apple made 85% of the profit share of the smartphone market, despite the fact that they only have a 14.5% market share in terms of sale. This is a very smart business model they're using. Now, Uber, unfortunately, you can't have it in Hong Kong, but it's a demonstration of how the sharing economy is coming about, right? Sharing economy is a use of spare capacity of your fixed asset, okay? Now, Netflix, in case you are not using it, you may want to have a free trial. They give you a free trial for 3 months. It's not about video streaming. We have lots of companies doing video streaming, but it's the introduction of what we call the subscription economy business model that killed a lot of other companies, and they are leader today in terms of video streaming for a fee. Now, in terms of career planning, these are the suggestions I want you to pay attention to. Now, firstly, most of you are undergrad, right? But let me remind you, your undergrad study may not be relevant at all to your career plan, okay? Your undergrad study at the university is to teach you how to think. It's not to teach you about a professional job. You need to be mindful about this one. If you can think, you have already fulfilled the goal of education at the university. And then you decide how to develop your career, okay? Now, what you're learning at schools are becoming obsolescent quickly. Therefore, I will advocate lifetime learning from online to offline learning, okay? And machines have replaced physical workers during the I 2.0 and I 3.0. And today, the biggest challenge to employees are AI. AI will replace knowledge workers like lawyers and accountants. Today, 25% of the lawyers' work are already done by AI. Close to half of the work done by accountants are already done by AI. Okay, so if you want to join the legal profession, accounting profession, be mindful of this one. You should possess some AI training before we join the profession. Now, in terms of competence you need to acquire to have a successful career, I will advocate that you build what we call T-shaped competence. T-shaped means that you need the breadth as well as the depth. In other words, you need to have the knowledge of a number of disciplines, and then you specialize in one of them, which become your vertical stroke of the letter T, okay? The same applies to companies. If you're going to run a business in the future, make sure that you have multiple discipline as well as a focus area of competence in your business, okay? Just to have focus on one thing is no longer enough for you and for any business. Now, to be prepared for the arrival of luck, I suggest that you should build soft skills on the way. For example, how to collaborate, how to work with people, how to work with companies who may be your competitor. A lot of soft skills that are people related you need to acquire, like empathy, okay? Important thing is about how to speak. Now, how to talk and how to speak is different, okay? Now, I suggest that you go to YouTube, type in a couple of keywords. Professor Patrick Winston has a 1 hour video shoot about a lecture called How to Speak. You type in a keyword, How to Speak by Professor Patrick Winston, and you'll be able to access this video. I find this a very, very good training material for you in terms of how to speak, okay? Now, the last thing, like what I said about T-shape, is about multidisciplinary, okay? Focus on customer, particularly the pain point of the customer, the changing need, the unmet need. This will give you insight about what are the new business you may be able to build, to grow, okay? Now, in the past, we won't advise undergraduate students to think about working for startup or to launch your own business. But today, you probably need to have some open mind about this one. Now, I'm not suggesting everyone should start their own business. It's just impossible. And if you haven't really worked in big corporations and then start your business, the chance of failure is extremely high. But my suggestion, you should be open-minded about working for a startup, joining some startup companies to learn about how entrepreneurs start their business, okay? Now, I want to leave you with a final message. If you need some motivation so that you are going to work very hard, very smart to move up an organization, this is something I learned from a colleague who is an engineer from Scotland. In 1981, we were traveling together in Guangzhou, my first trip to China at that time, and we were having a bottle of Qingdao beer in the hotel, and he told me about this sentence. He said, Alan, do you know what's the most miserable thing in life? The most miserable thing in life is to work for an incompetent boss. Now, with this statement from him, I started to work very hard to make sure that I'll always overtake an incompetent boss in case I come across one, and make sure that I'll get around him rather than being distracted by him, bothered by him, and then become very unhappy. So if you have forgotten about what I said earlier on, this is a statement I want you to remember. As soon as you start your job, make sure that you will not work for an incompetent boss. Look for coaches, look for mentors, look for co-partners in business development, etc. Make sure that you and him or her will learn together and grow your career. Okay, so that's what I have prepared. I have a bit of overrun, okay? And so, Ivan, let's start the Q&A.
Yeah, so the first question was from Robert Wong. If you're 20, which industry or trends do you think would bring the greatest breakthrough, or that you would recommend joining?
It's very difficult to give you a direct answer. I think that a couple of them are growing very rapidly. Obviously, my answers are based on my own experience, what I'm working on today. For example, if you're a scientist in the biotechnology area, that area is worth investing a couple of years there, okay? For example, I know a little bit about stem cell and what we call regenerative medicine. And that is going to give us a couple of breakthroughs. It's going to be very similar to the mRNA vaccine that we've seen in the last 6 months. It's that kind of breakthrough that will deliver a lot of benefits to human beings. In the IT world, it's about AI, no doubt about it. Artificial intelligence, machine learning. If you're a quantum physics guy, quantum computer is going to be very big in the next 10, 15 years. But don't expect to see breakthrough in the next few years. It's going to take a while, okay? The hardware, the software, the environment need to be together. Most of the technology have not been adopted because all the enabling technologies surrounding it are not ready. Sometimes the cost curve is not right. Sometimes there's a missing piece in some technology. For example, just imagine this one. If you want to introduce electric vehicle 25 years ago, when battery wasn't available, what can you do? Nothing you can do, right? So I'll suggest you think about IT-based AI, big data. If you're studying business, maybe the digital economy will be of interest to you. Joining a company like HKTV Mall, who is doing a lot of e-commerce today using AI and robot to do logistic management. That's a kind of good area to start with. If you're a medical student, yeah, stem cell, that kind of regenerative medicine area would be good. Or go into medical devices. With aging population, all of us will need kind of medical robot or domestic robot, household robot to help us, including medical devices to monitor our health condition from time to time. Battery technology is at a kind of infant phase. There will be a lot of new breakthrough in battery technology, like new materials we're going to adopt in the battery design. Okay, I suggest you do some online research. People are talking about nitrogen, people are talking about hydrogen, people are talking about using cobalt, etc., new material for battery. there are different ways of having breakthrough. Now, I don't know which one is going to be successful, but we need to have a kind of options in our hand so that when something is not working out, we go a different route. Okay, thank you.
So we have quite a few questions and not that much time, so I'll only ask the very relevant questions, I think. The rest, the questions that I didn't ask, could they email you those? That'd be okay?
Okay, okay.
So the next question is, would you have any advice for students from art and humanities background? How could we relate to the trend and survive the changes?
You're talking about asset management, right?
Art and humanities.
Sorry, I don't catch it.
So like liberal
Can you
arts.
repeat again, Alvin?
Yeah. So what advice do you have for students who study arts, humanities, so liberal art kind of subjects?
Oh, okay, liberal arts. Okay, remember we talked about design innovation? Liberal arts are very important for design innovation, okay? Now, don't just think about innovation, technology, or business model. Design is important as well. Now, this is actually a good point. I forgot to mention about this one. While you're building up your multiple disciplinary skill, etc., I will encourage you to do something which may be considered by other people as stupid. For example, I listen to classical music. When I visit London, I always go to the National Gallery to look at the masterpieces in the gallery, the painting. Okay. Now, the reason I want to do of this one is that you need to appreciate the artistic power of our mind. Okay. When you look at a 200-year-old painting, or when you're listening to Beethoven, for example, you should be able to relate the artistic thinking within those masters, why they managed to draw, to come up with a certain musical piece, why they can come up with a certain painting, etc. Now, this could give you some insight about how we should be designing things in the future, whether it's about a product, a user interface, or something else, okay? So don't say that, oh, everything is about technology, everything about business in the future. No, no, no. Everything is complementary to each other, okay? All the art study, all the humanities study, etc., are important to us. One example I can mention is a very famous writer called Jane Jacobs. She's a Canadian living, but she lived in America for the rest of her life after graduation. And she's one of the most distinguished modern city planning expert in it, okay? He studied human mentality. He think about how people can congregate and come with urbanization, but at the same time maintain good quality of life within the city. Now, a lot of books that she wrote, which are still followed by city planners today around the world. Okay, so we need to be able to have a broad area of disciplines together to make sure that at the end of the day, all the technology, design, business model, etc., are to bring benefits to mankind, make sure that we can live a better quality life apart from longevity. Okay, and GDP is one thing, but we don't just push for GDP as measured by a numerical number. We want to make sure that we have a broad spectrum of quality as well as quantitative way of better living. Okay.
Thank you. The next question is quite relevant, actually, I think. To what extent the information and technology advancement has positively or negatively affected COVID-19 vaccine making process and the time related with the whole process?
Yeah, I think the first 6 months after the pandemic broke, people, all of us were at a loss because we have never seen something like this, right? And therefore, the scientists went into different direction. But we are fortunate, apart from the traditional way of developing vaccine, which is now being used in China mainly, there were new technologies that have been developed, but they haven't been able to find a scale like a pandemic to try it out, which is the mRNA technology, okay, the messenger RNA technology. And the technology was developed by a couple of German scientists, and this couple came from Turkey. This is an illustration why we always say that in the scientific world, we need to be inclusive. This couple from Turkey immigrated to Germany, worked with Germany's scientists and the academics, etc. And then they came up with this theory about how mRNA can work in a number of areas, including vaccine. So they have the principle developed, but they need to find a way of trying out. Initially, they were trying to use the technology on the annual flu, the influenza. But as soon as the COVID-19 pandemic broke, they said that let's try out on it. And after 3 to 6 months of research work with the support of Pfizer, etc., they came up with the vaccine, and they went into clinical trial 1, 2, and 3, eventually got FDA approval. Now, so this is a kind of breakthrough in terms of preparedness. In other words, they should have the theory behind, and then they have the chance. This is a bit about luck, right? But at the same time, it's about agility, how quickly they can respond to it. And also Pfizer, knowing that Pfizer itself hasn't got the technology background to come with a vaccine quickly, and therefore they partner with a small firm called Biotech in Germany, owned by this couple of Turkish scientists. And then the 6 months working together came up with the world's first mRNA-based vaccine, and it's so proven. It's 90-something% effective, right? Now, obviously, other pharmaceutical companies will come up with something similar using very close approach. And this is how human beings understanding innovation technology are working together, moving civilization to the next phase. And this is great. Now, in terms of data, now I have to say the first 6 months was terrible. We just don't know what's going on, okay? Even the head, Dr. Fauci of the Disease Control Center in USA said that there's no use to put on a mask. Obviously, by now we know it's important to put on a mask. And now he's changed his stance. He said that we should have double masks, which is stupid, I think. Right? I think a single mask gives you the right protection already. Double mask doesn't give you any additional protection, okay? So this is the kind of misunderstanding, lack of data point. At the same time, I would probably say a lack of professionalism at the beginning as well, which is really, really bad for human beings. Now, I think we have learned a big lesson, and moving forward, I hope that all the data points we've learned, all the lessons we've learned will help us address the next pandemic, should there be one.
Alan, so since we have a few more questions, would you like to extend have extra 15 minutes to? No
problem for me, so as you guys are interested in it.
Before we proceed the time, why don't we take a group photo together, to capture these 100 students and like a fascinating listener to Alan's talk tonight. Thank you so much.
Great idea. Let me stop sharing, okay? Great idea.
So everybody, could you please turn on your camera and we'll just take a quick group picture to remember this.
Oh, we have 100 people. That's great.
And we are recording the session. We believe there'll be more students who listen to your sharing tonight.
Thank you, Ray.
So, Patrick, are we done?
We just hold on for another 10 more seconds. Can you guys please turn on your screens? And we have more people to take a group photo.
Yeah.
All
turn on
right.
your camera.
Yeah, turn on your camera.
Camera, please.
Let me see a beautiful face.
All right, give me a few more seconds. 3, 2, 1. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for turning on your cameras.
Ivan, please proceed.
Yeah. So the next question was, let's see. So question from Kwok Woon Yim. While more and more things will be replaced by AI, does it imply that soft skills will be most important thing to enable us to succeed instead of hard skills in the future? What do you think?
Soft skills are always the most important as a business executive, or whether you're pursuing a sales or customer service role in your career, okay? It's all about soft skills, about your mentality, where you start, and how you speak, how you talk, how you listen. These are all soft skills, whether your mindset is about inclusive, of different ethnic group, different people from different walk of life, different industry background, etc. These are always the most important. But it doesn't mean that hard skills will be displaced completely by AI. At the end of the AI, all the algorithms they put in the AI are developed by human beings. We still need some hard skill, particularly in the, for example, the semiconductor, the electronic area. Remember the second column, the red column? All of those are about hard skill, how we manufacture the bits and pieces of equipment to help the AI to function, okay? The challenge that we are facing in the next, I would say 10 to 15 years is that we expect to see an oversupply of people, okay, as a result of AI, massive use of AI in particular. And that's why some of the sociologists, for example, Dr. Lowe's area of study is to look at how we as a human race can continue to prosper even with AI. Now, the challenge that we're going to see in AI will be very different from the first introduction of, for example, steam engine 250 years ago, okay? At that time, when we introduce some new thing, new technology, there are new industries, new job types being created. When we introduce mainframe computer, for example, there will be a much heavier demand for programmers, for system analysts, etc., right? But the issue with AI that we're facing today is that once we have the AI solution, it can be rolled out globally very quickly, and therefore can potentially displace a lot of headcounts in the organization, or job types will disappear before other job types can emerge, and that become a social problem. In Northern Europe and at one time in Canada as well, the government tried to create a kind of minimum pay system, meaning if you don't have a job, you still get a pay from the government. And it's a kind of preparedness for the arrival of AI, when more and more people will be out of job. But eventually they found that that kind of system really doesn't make sense and doesn't work, so they kill all those kind of trials. Now, today we still need to rely on sociologists to find a way of balancing between the much wider use of AI, therefore potentially displacing a lot of jobs, and then creating new job types, etc. The French government came up with a very funny way. They basically said, oh, we are not going to have enough job for everybody. So from now on, we're going to have 4-day week, and later on 3.5-day week and a 3-day week. In other words, reduce the number of days you need to work. But this doesn't really solve the problem. At the end of the day, we still need people to work, not just because of output, it's because we need people to congregate and then create this kind of community thinking. For students, for example, just imagine when you graduate in 2 years' time, there's no job for the job type you've been trained, assuming you're doing a professional study, right? What will you feel? You don't have a chance of getting into a job and learn from your peers, learn from your coach. Okay, and that's really the biggest problem we're going to see. But I would say if you're learning hard skill today, don't give up. Don't just say that hard skill have no market in the future. You still have that, but the hard skill will become a kind of basic or entry-level requirement. At the end of the day, how you differentiate yourself from the rest is the soft skill.
So speaking of hard skills, we have a PhD student specifically in stem cell biology. Her question is, what advice do you have of to switch from academia to industry? How would you do that for stem cell biology? How would you?
I'm not an expert in this area. Well, let me share with you what I know about stem cell. Okay, I'm not a scientist at all. Okay, I'm learning from my colleagues here. Now, my understanding is that the deliverable of the stem cell technology is about regenerative medicine. In other words, we want to find ways of reproducing the cell of the body to either replace the cells that are bad, like a cancer cell, or cells that are sick, okay? So if we can produce more good cells and then replace those bad ones or dying ones, then you can rebuild the physical strength of your body and become a healthy person, right? And there are different types of technology available today. The two technologies that the company that I'm chairing is working on, firstly, it's about cloning the stem cell. In other words, we build technology that can allow the cell to split up and then build more and more. So it double second after second, right? Because cell is so small, so we need tons and tons of cells to be able to clone human organs. And the human organ that we're focusing on today is the human heart. Okay, the heart is probably the most important organ within the whole body. We can lose any of the other organ, or we can have some replacement of it, but not the heart. Okay, and if your heart's not working, in 3 seconds you die. Right? It's so mission critical. That's why we are focusing on cloning stem cell, allowing stem cells split up, duplicate, replicate, etc., and then come with human organs. The second type of technology we're developing is to produce a cell so that it can be put into the body to replace the dead one or sick ones. Okay, and this through a GMP facility in Hong Kong. Now, both of them are what we call regenerative medicine. It's kind of for medical use. And the technology is, I would say the underlying technology is mature, and there are different ways of doing it. And obviously we have IP protection of the ways that we are doing it. And the challenge to the students that raise this question is that you can't do everything at the same time. So you need to find an area to focus on. For example, if there are people already doing heart cell cloning, would you like to do something else or clone something else? Okay, and which today is no one is doing. For example, when we talk about heart, right? There are at least 3 teams of scientists that are working on the same subject. One in US, one in our company, one in Israel. They're using different technology. Okay, we believe we have the best, obviously, right? But you have to pick something to start your research. Okay, now I don't know what. At which stage of his PhD study is. If it's not too late, do some research and then pick one and then do your basic thesis using it, and hopefully after you have graduated, you can build your own business using what you have learned. The important thing is talk to your professor, get some insight from this area. There's so much I know about stem cell. Okay.
So we have question more on the political side of things. What do you think about USA's increasingly isolationist approach to international, I think he meant international students and just globally speaking? Do you think we should still go to the US? Perhaps like Silicon Valley or other places are still relevant and perhaps they're the future?
If you have a chance, I would still encourage you to go to the US, not just Silicon Valley, okay? Silicon Valley is good for IT, good for semiconductor, but along IS 101 on both sides of it, there are about 500 biotechnology companies. Half of them are owned by Chinese, Hong Kong Chinese, Taiwan Chinese, or China Chinese, right? So that's an area that a lot of talents have been congregated, and it's a good area to get the attention of investors and then work with really world-leading scientists. I would still encourage you to consider. If you want to do medical study, etc., the East Coast is not a bad choice at all, okay? You can go to Harvard, etc., right? Go to Johns Hopkins. You're going to see a lot of good peers that can guide you, etc., to further your study, okay? America is still a good place to further your study, despite all the political uncertainty that we're seeing. The good thing about the American system is that every 4 years, they will re-elect a new president, and who will come up with a new way of dealing with this kind of political issues, right? It's very difficult to say that, oh, in 4 years' time, the same thing will continue. Now, for example, compared to today and October last year, things have changed, right? Is it going to change to the better? I don't know. But the thing that I'm pretty certain is that every 4 years, there will be a new president, okay? And then there will be a new team of administrators and a new policy being introduced. So I'll never give up on the American system. And I still believe that USA is a good place to build your career in technology and innovations, okay? But obviously, you have to make your own call in terms of financial capability, your political mindset. Are you going to accept the kind of way of life in US? The way of life in US is very different. Right? I'm a Canadian. I enjoy the Canadian lifestyle. Okay, the Canadian lifestyle is very different from Hong Kong or China or Taiwan or Singapore, for example. So it's something you need to make a choice.
So to expand a little bit on that, more of my personal question, since you said the president changes every 4 years, right? Does that cause somewhat of a political instability in the sense that you don't know if your company will be penalized for something or there will be increase in taxes, right? There's certain uncertainty with it, which if you're a startup, that's quite a risk.
Yeah, remember what I said at the beginning? Coping with change is one of the important things you need to know, right? For sure, we know that it's going to change. It's going to change to the better or in your favor. We don't know. But for sure, the system in the US that have been for, what, 2.5 centuries now, have been improving in the long run. If you look at the kind of chart, it's something like this. What's going on? It's always improving, right? Obviously, there will be short-term disruption. And this is life. So we should not be complaining about it. So you know about the American system, the way they select the Senate, the way they elect the common, the representative, etc., right? And you know that there are lots of check and balances available in the US. So even a strong president like Donald Trump, he can't just do everything he wants, right? He's still being constrained by the Senate and by the House, and also by the businessmen. So those are the kind of check and balance that give us living in North America the confidence that there could be minor adjustment and deviation, but the long-term trend is still trending northeast. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So a question from Peter Ting, a little bit more of coming back home. You mentioned on the tech-related areas. What do you think about mental and psychological health, and corresponding to the challenges because of COVID-19? It raised a lot of concerns, most likely.
Yeah, this is something that we're going to continue to see in the aftermath of the pandemic, unfortunately. And for students in this program, my own suggestion is that you need to build up your own resilience to disruption, to unexpected events. You're going to see many of them in your career, okay? Just see this as a kind of training ground. It's unfortunate that the psychological damages, etc., will continue with many people. Okay, so just remember, many people lost their job. Many small businesses have to shut down, and they lost their savings, right? But these are disruptions that they unfortunately have gone through. And in Hong Kong, I don't see the government really giving big help in this area. In North America, it's slightly better. Canadian and the US government are helping in a big way. And they also understand that as soon as the vaccines have been rolled out in a large number, then the economy will come back. In Hong Kong, we face two issues. One is the pandemic. The other one is the long-term role of Hong Kong. What role will Hong Kong play in the future? For the second one, I looked at the budget speech just announced yesterday. I still don't have a clear view about the long-term role of Hong Kong. Now, 50 years ago, 40 years ago, even 20 years ago, I can see clearly what's the role of Hong Kong and how Hong Kong people can make not just a living, but prosper. But today, I don't see what would be the medium to long-term role of Hong Kong. Okay, I'm still searching for this answer.
That is definitely quite a challenge of a question to ponder upon.
Right.
A question from Kim Eugene. May I ask, what do you think will be the key factor or element that will differentiate human beings from AI in the future and help us to remain successful, even in the face of AI-dominant world?
You need to understand AI is just like a kind of programmed an algorithm that decide for how things are going to be done, right? But the difference between AI and what we used to know in the last 5 decades is that now they are machine learning. So AI will be able to learn and improve on. So you can write the first algorithm, but if you're smart, the algorithm will enable AI to self-learn and then keep on improving, okay? And this is really the biggest challenge of human being today. Now, in the past, we always said that human being can learn, can adapt, etc. Right? Now, AI can do all of this. What AI cannot do today is on the artistic side of things. You cannot ask AI to draw a painting, for example, as good as what Van Gogh has come up with. You cannot ask AI to compose a piece of music, but AI can write a good piece of news report. Okay, so these are two types of skills that we are talking about. Now, what human being can differentiate from AI is about our thinking, our sensitivity, how we sense something. Okay, AI cannot really sense as well as human being. They have a certain degree of sensing, but it's all equipped by sensors and all the learning, etc. Right? Now, human being can adapt very quickly. AI will probably take a while because they need to collect data points, do the learning and learning and the validation, etc. Right? So, in terms of what human being can do, I would suggest that you may want to read a very little book published by Stephen Hawking before he passed away a year ago. It's very little, only about 50 pages. And he posed two very important questions in answer to this particular question from student. Okay, what human can do? Now, there are two schools of thought today. One is we are really afraid of AI. The other school of thought is we are not concerned about AI at all. AI, like other technology we've seen in the past, will help human civilization move forward. Now, I don't know which school is right. Okay, it really depends on next 5 to 10 years development. But it's important for students to understand the two sides, the arguments. What are the conditions precedent for one of the two schools to be real in the future?
So I think for today we'll end all of the questions. So thanks so much for being with us today and actually tell all of the experience that you have. I think you have even more. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time. I think
no, send me email if there are good questions you think I will be able to help. Send me email. I'll be more than happy to answer them. You're a great host, Ivan.
Thank you. Could you share your screen again and show your email? And we'll just write it down in the main chat.
Okay.
Ivan, could I do 1 minute closing?
Yes, please.
Yeah, when Alan is showing the last slide. Yeah, Alan, please go ahead when you show the last slide. So I would like to mention a few things. Number one, everybody is inspired, including me, got inspired by Alan for his wonderful sharing from all the way from Canada. And I want to mention that the speaker tonight is actually proposed and nominated by our students. So they want to listen to you. And the result is amazing and phenomenal. So one more important aspect I want to share is Alan is the former CEO, but at the same time, he really cares about not just university student. He really cares about the Hong Kong student education. I'll give a quick example. A few years ago, when Alan is still the CEO of a science park, he actually offered the venue in science park for so many coding activity for K-12 students in Hong Kong, including the Hour of Code event that we are organizing in Science Park. Thank you so much for that. And tonight we also see
welcome, Ray.
Dr. HLU, the Senior Director in Science Park. He also come and support and listen. I want to make a quick closing for tonight. We are so honored to have Professor Low support from VP office, Wilson, Gloria, Yuen from SR office, and our Hall 10 RM Henry has been here with us for the whole night. So we are amazing to have so many people with us. And more importantly, do you know why Alan is with us tonight? It's because of all the students, because you are the key person that bring in so many important speakers. So we look forward to seeing you again in the upcoming event. And don't forget,
thank you very much.
Find out the video recording from our website. So Ivan, do you have anything you want to add?
No, I think we had a wonderful evening. I just wish everyone a good night in Hong Kong and a wonderful day to Alan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Low. Thank you, Ray. Thanks, Ivan.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Okay, I'll sign off from here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We'll look forward to seeing you again in the next event. Bye-bye. Good night.
Yeah, I should be in Hong Kong in July. So we'll catch up, Ray.
Definitely. Bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, good job. Yeah. 多謝晒 Professor Low. Yeah. Yeah. I think I need to set the unmute so that everybody can speak. Yeah, I forgot. Yes. Good night. Yeah. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Yeah. 多謝晒大家. Okay. Bye-bye. Patrick, I think you did a good job. Yeah, Patrick, I think it's very smooth tonight. Yeah, we managed to get a lot of more people tonight. Yeah.
No worries, Dr. Ray. It was great.
Yeah, and Ivan left already. Okay, I think he's busy moderating. All right, good night. Bye-bye. Yeah, bye-bye.